Hey guys, it's definitely been a while. I'm uh I'm still autistic. Since the last time I posted, things have changed a bit. I have an actual editing software now for one, and most importantly, I play the Project Moon games. And well, you saw the title. We're talking about. So let's go back to the start. Before I started playing the DN games, I had Library Burner recommended me a few times via Steam, so it was on my radar. But then Roblox came up with friends, got an update, and it was okay, I won't use this joke again. So Stalker Sand added Roland, and I was like, wow, this guy is pretty cool. I wonder where he's from. And then I played through Library of Runa. And then I downloaded Limbus Company. Limbus and the other games are fun. I would recommend them. Anyways, you've probably played the game if you're watching this. And also, obvious spoilers ahead. But now, we can finally get to the subject of the video. There are a lot of bosses in Limbus. And for the most part, the community agrees which ones are the hard ones. But this is my video, so we're using my opinions. So let's start with honorable mentions. To start off, we're going to be going over some of the fights that people in the community regard as hard. Some in the community. I didn't really find either of these fights hard, but whatever. To start off, we're going to start with Dongbei, who is widely considered as the wall, the difficulty spike. Well, for people unable to read. Not actually. I read none of her passives or abilities and fought her with this team, and if I remember correctly, 2 try. So what do people think makes Dongbei hard? It's reading comprehension. Okay, but actually, Dongbei isn't that hard. The problem comes from the fact that up to this point, most players aren't reading passives or abilities, and they're just hitting win rate to get through. But even still, this fight isn't too hard. The problem stems from her unique status effect, Blooming, along with the skill Magnificent Spring Breeze. Let's start with Blooming, which is pretty simple. When Dongbei hits someone, she'll inflict some Blooming. When Blooming reaches 5 count, the sinner will stagger and then be ensnared in a flower that you have to kill to free them. If the Blooming count isn't at 5, the sinner will just lose some sanity a turn in, which does make clashing harder, but Dongbei herself has low clashing power, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, what about the Spring Breeze? Even simpler. When Dongbei gets her second phase, she'll spawn 4 Bloom flowers, and you then use Magnificent Spring Breeze, which gains clash power based off how many flowers are alive. But Dongbei is likely to roll low speed, so just kill the flowers and clash with the skill using one of your slower sinners. So to finish this section, win the easy clashes, and kill the low HP flowers. Okay, next boss. Don Quixote. Who I'm gonna be real, it's only here because of this guy. That's it. It's not hard. After reviewing this kit, I've come to 3 conclusions. The length of the fight, his healing potential, and of course unbreakable points. Of course unbreakable points are going to be on here. Let's start with the length. The fight is 3 phases long, and you'll be spending the majority of that time in a second phase, which could be considered the hardest one. But again, this fight isn't hard, and as long as you're paying attention, you should be fine. Up next is his healing potential. It's in quotations because it barely exists. He heals by only 30% of the damage dealt, which, unless it's an attack weight skill, is very little. As well as the fact it doesn't activate untracked points, which the majority of attack weight skills are unbreakable points that can be tracked. Not to mention another one of his passives that nerfs him for healing. as well as nerfing him even more if he kills the center. Okay, last part. And probably the part that I agree with most, of course, his Unbreakables. It's his Unbreakables, yeah. Now, his Unbreakables aren't going to do much damage on crack, but he still applies bleed, which is where you're going to suffer from. Not to mention 7 of his 13 skills are Unbreakables. But here's the thing. If he were to use all 7 skills in one turn, the max amount of bleed he would apply with cracked coins would be 22 potency, 5 count. And 2 of these skills are those skills, you know, the ones that the boss uses by themselves. So, yeah, wouldn't call this fight hard. Okay, now we're getting to my opinions. The last 2 fights were kind of just takes I saw online, but now we're getting to, in my opinion, so beware opinions ahead. But Bame had again. It's a fun fight, but he kind of just outright makes sinking a lot harder to fight him with due to his high roll negative coins. Which, while it's not actually that big of a deal, it is somewhat a fundamental game design problem. This is also a time fight. Well, quote unquote, a time fight. It's not exactly the same as something like the 644 Earl King fight, but once he gets to 20% HP, he can kind of just snowball to claim their bones, and kind of just wipe your whole team. It also doesn't help that when he gets to this, he also is going to be using 2 Blade Dance counters, which kind of just makes it extremely harder to deal with this whole problem, because Blade Dance does so much damage for just a counter that you can't avoid. And then for the Bocock, let's just throw in some Unbreakable coins. Other than that, I just think this is one of the fights that can actually punish you, not having a good team. That's really it. He was also probably the one big roadblock for when I played this game. Alright, that's it for this section. Oh boy, where do I start? How about this? For one, my normal team couldn't beat this fight, and it was straight up easier to solo with Team Tank Hong Lu. Other than that, there are a good amount of factors that contribute to the difficulty. For starters, Jia Qiu has insane clashing power, like ego level rolls for normal skills. Just look at Thunderstrike Ripple and Deathrite Deluge. Another thing is, you guessed it, Unbreakables. Now, it's not quite the damage his crack coins do, it's the amount of rupture they apply and how many he has. For example, his mouse skills all have 4 Unbreakable coins that inflict rupture. Not to mention that on Clash of Lose, some of these skills, either way, will just delete centers. Now, what made this fight hard for me is speed and clashing. When I did this fight in the actual Kanto, I kept coming across a problem where my centers were too slow in the first phase. So, Qiao Kong and Zilu kept getting free unopposed attacks that, for some reason, the game always had to be their strong skills, would either just take 3/4 of my center's health, or just outright kill them. Now, there's a way around this, and that's to solo the fight. And while that's what I did, and frankly it was outright easier than attempting with an actual team, Meta Rupture wasn't out yet, it was extremely RNG heavy. Most of my time on this fight came from relying on RNG to get all heads on Team Tank Hong Lu's evade on the first turn. Another part of this fight that makes it difficult is the length. Now, this wouldn't normally actually be that much of a problem, as this fight actually gets easier in the later phases. To be honest, despite some skills falling really high, clashing isn't actually that bad due to the amount of ego resources you'll have from the dungeon. But, it all circles back to your Unbreakables and Rupture. No matter what, most of the time, you're just gonna have sinners just get screwed by Unbreakables and die. But what about the chain battle mechanic? You'd be surprised how one unlucky turn can just wipe the board. Okay, first off, I second tried this fight, pre-nerf. Just a little brag. Second off, unlike Dong Bacon Dawn, Quixote, I can actually see this fight being hard. So let's break this kid down. Okay, guess what makes this fight hard? It's Unbreakables. Okay, There's an elephant in this room we gotta go over first. The skill. Now, Savage Tiger Slayer seems like it's not that bad. You just pop Ego and win the clash, which will get you 6 paralyze on Lei Heng, and it'll only do 20% damage. The problem isn't the damage though, is that he's still inflicting a good amount of burn on your already low team. And back to this only 20% damage, you see, by the time you use the Savage Tiger Slayer, he'll probably be at 60% or lower, meaning he'll have Savage Tiger Mark round, which then converts his 20% to 50%. Then, stack his Unrelenting Spirit Shin, and he's still doing pretty good damage, with attack weight. And, furthermore, Unrelenting Spirit Shin gives him more unbreakables, so, in my opinion, this fight's status application and force damage, while you yourself are unable to deal high damage most of the time, combine to make this probably one of the most challenging fights in Limbus. Hey guys, Editing Curry here. This video was in production hell for a long time. I started working on this video at the start of the school year in August, and it is now almost a new year. So this video isn't exactly what I envisioned at the beginning anymore. A lot of things happened, and you can probably tell by the time I get to Jia Qiu and Lei Heng. I'm kind of just trying to get the video done. Either way, I still want to put this video out there. Uh, but yeah, this is development hell. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Uh, Please don't bully me too hard.